Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This showdown on March 3rd between WBC champion Deontay Wilder and Cuban southpaw challenger Luis King Kong Ortiz, it's been a long time coming for both men. Not only that, but also for fans and the heavyweight division in general. It's what I call a real slow burn, and I'm going to get into that a bit more. So in this video, I'm going to work through the history, the build-up, how I see it playing out, and of course, a prediction, which I've actually had a lot of trouble coming to a firm conclusion on, just because I do think this is going to be a close fight. It's a 50-50 sort of pick-em fight. I could see both guys winning, but more on that later. So thanks for joining me for the next 10 minutes or so. Buckle in. Let's go. Deontay Wilder, 39-0 as a professional in a career spanning a decade. He's been WBC champion for 3 years and has defended his title 6 times. But some boxing fans and pundits alike do not hold the Bronze Bomber's record in the highest regard due to a perceived lack of top opponents on it. And this has really dogged Deontay Wilder and his image. I believe it's part of the reason that he hasn't really taken off. And indeed, it's been a bone of contention for Wilder himself. He stated on numerous occasions in the past 6 to 8 months that he's fought the best available, as other guys were either ducking him or on performance-enhancing drugs. And that latter point, it has proven out 3 times, with Alexander Povetkin, Andrzej Wawrzyk and Luis Ortiz all failing doping tests ahead of their fights with Deontay Wilder. Although it must be said, for some context here, that Wawrzyk fight, it was a blatant tune-up fight, cherry pick if you will, to test Wilder's surgically repaired hand after he suffered a bad injury in mid-2016. He basically mashed his hand and he also damaged his arm when he was bludgeoning Chris Arreola. But anyway, I digress. So this lack of respect for Wilder, his record, his beaten opponents, it is something that he clearly takes as a personal affront, and he's accused fans, media and YouTubers of not doing their research. He's also recently doubled down on how good he is and how good his record is by saying repeatedly he's the most avoided, the most feared heavyweight of all time. Here's some of the things he's been saying that have popped up on social media.
I keep telling y'all guys over and over again, I'm the most feared.
Oh no.
What did he say?
I keep telling y'all guys over and over again, I'm the most feared.
Again, I repeat, I am the most feared heavyweight in the division. None of these champions, the best, don't want their O to go. They don't want to lose their record.
Okay, let's put Deontay Wilder's record aside and some of his grandiose claims. What we do have now, we have Deontay Wilder facing Luis Ortiz. It's a matchup that fans have been looking forward to for several months. Originally, the duo were set to face each other in November, but unfortunately a failed doping test from Ortiz, which was subsequently ruled a medical issue by the WBC, that cancelled the fight at the time. But it has been resurrected, and some credit should go to Deontay Wilder for taking it on a second time. Resurrected for March 3rd. We're almost here. I would have liked to actually have run a quote from a recent press conference, but bizarrely there has not been one. There wasn't one when the fight was re-announced in January. So what we have had is the odd media interview and some social media posts. So there hasn't been nearly as much as you would have thought for a fight of this magnitude. That's disappointing in itself. But I'll take you back to September. So this is the first time around at the press conference because Wilder's comments then are still very relevant now.
I am the best, and I'm gonna show you. Instead of talking, I'm gonna show you I'm the best. And when I do defeat him, when I do knock him out, I want my well-earned due respect. I want my well-earned due credit. I don't want nobody to say nothing else. You got the only American heavyweight champion of the world right here.
Luis Ortiz, meanwhile, he turned pro at age 30 in 2010. The 38-year-old, well, allegedly he's 38. Well, we certainly think he may be a few years older and coming out of the Cuban system. Some of those ages maybe aren't the most credible. But anyway, we'll take it at face value, 38. He's fashioned a formidable record of 28-0. He has an extensive amateur career behind him with more than 300 fights. And he first became a ranked fighter for the first time in 2011, and that was in the WBA. He would later, in 2014, win an interim belt with the WBA, only to be stripped after testing positive for nandrolone, and subsequently he served a 9-month ban. Ortiz's best win, it's over former title contender Bryant Jennings. That's, head and shoulders above the rest. But apart from that, it's actually a little bit thin on the resume. In the past 2 years, he's definitely struggled to find meaningful fights consistently. And as a result, because he has been seen as a man that's, let's avoid him, he's got that reputation as a boogeyman of sorts, a man to be avoided. I mean, some have questioned, though, that tag, that moniker, after he has had a couple of less than impressive performances against Malik Scott and Dave Allen. And the title shot, this is definitely something that is long overdue. He's one of these guys where you say, he should be getting a title shot, and he almost had one a few months back, but he messed it up with some paperwork. And just on that, I mean, come on. It does seem a little bit suspect on the surface. Anyway, for both men, it's the right fight, albeit an overdue one. So credit to both guys for taking it on and putting their unbeaten record on the line. But somewhat surprisingly, and this is an interesting point, since the re-announcement of the Wilder-Ortiz fight for March 3rd, this build-up has been more notable and punctuated with comments from Deontay Wilder directed towards his fellow champion Anthony Joshua, rather than a barrage of comments directed at Luis Ortiz. He's definitely been quoted way more than he should have about Anthony Joshua. It kind of has been a little bit of a head scratcher why he's been talking about him so much when he's got this big fight coming up. But when he has been talking about Ortiz, the general rhetoric is very similar to statements like this one.
You know what? Luis Ortiz, you gonna get it. Somebody gotta pay for this, man. All this sacrifice, all this hard work, and this dedication. I'm getting working my ass out. You gonna pay. And I'm gonna make you thankful, man. I bless you twice.
In a recent post from social media, Wilder also summed up the fight as King versus Kong. It's going to be explosive, or explosive as Deontay Wilder says. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be epic. I can't wait to put this old man to sleep on March 3rd. Ortiz, meanwhile, he's been prodding Wilder for months. He wants this fight. Even after he was turned away because of that testing issue, he's turned up to Wilder's fights, for example, against Berman Stavern to bait him.
Hey Wilder, I'm here. I'm here for you. You want to see me? I am the champion. You know?
And you may remember Wilder returned the favour in December at one of Ortiz's fights. Ortiz has told FightNews.com he won't get sucked into a war of words with Wilder. As for the fight and as for Wilder, I have no comments for him. None of his talk bothers me. He can talk all he wants. Deontay is trying to convince himself it's going to be a hell of a fight and somebody's going to hit the canvas. While he keeps hyping himself and trying to believe in himself, it's going to be a bad night for him. He's talking about PEDs. I've taken 7 tests in a month and a week, 7 blood and urine tests for VADA and the New York Commission. I'm pretty sure Ortiz, he's eager to tell anyone that will listen that he's clean, given he's already got 2 blotches on his record for past indiscretions. So of course he's trumpeting that he's cleared the test, and that's going to help erase some doubts in the minds of some fans at least. I mean, clearly Ortiz, he's been putting in work in camp though. That's evident from some of the training videos that he's been posting. I mean, historically, and some of them running in the background, Ortiz's fighting weight in his earlier part of his career was generally somewhere around the high 220s, low 230s, generally 230 to 233-ish. But as he's aged, started climbing, and more recently it's been around the 240-ish mark or slightly over. But by the looks of it, he's looking leaner. And coming in lighter, it will be to his advantage. Because Deontay Wilder is very fleet of foot. Luis Ortiz can't afford to be caught flat-footed or be sluggish in there, so having any little advantage that he can get back by being at the lighter weight, I'm sure it'll be helpful. And Deontay Wilder, he's been posting the odd clip to social media from training camp, but it doesn't really give too much away. He did have a media day, but that was just sort of bashing the pads. We know that Wilder comes in shape every single time he fights. And based off his most recent outings, I think we can expect him to weigh somewhere about 220 pounds, or thereabouts. He's been using the likes of Malik Scott, Lenroy Thomas, Gerald Washington, and even Julius Ndongo, the lightweight, and a couple of others for sparring purposes. I do have a few question marks over what some of these guys bring to sparring and what they can do to mimic Luis Ortiz and his style. But time will tell if Deontay Wilder has had a good mix of guys in there to give him some work. To the fight itself. Making a prediction. It's extremely tough with this one. I think this is a genuine 50-50 contest because I could see both guys winning this one. And that's actually what we should be getting at the top of the heavyweight division more often than not. Competitive fights. But let's get into the case for Ortiz. Very skilled boxer, good ring craft, and a ginormous 84-inch reach. Yes, 84 inches. He will actually take a 1-inch reach advantage into March 3rd. And if you go back and watch some film of Wilder, he has a canny knack of being able to swerve out of the way of shots just before they hit the intended target, which is obviously his head. I wonder if this longer reach that Ortiz does possess, I wonder if it ends up connecting with Wilder as he looks to dodge out of the way of a shot he does see coming. That longer reach, just those extra few inches, that could be the difference to something landing. And remember, being at a reach disadvantage, it's not something Deontay Wilder will be used to or accustomed to dealing with. In general, it's fair to say, I believe, Ortiz is the far superior boxer in terms of skills, and I could actually see him winning most of the rounds through just general ring craft and boxing smarts. I encourage you to actually search out a couple of film studies that are on YouTube. There's a couple of good ones, and one that I particularly liked was Luis Ortiz versus Dave Allen. It broke a few things down and it alluded to all these subtle things that Ortiz does very well that keep him out of trouble, but at the same time keep him in position to take advantage of mistakes. And that could be key in this fight. And I do think a lot has been made of Luis Ortiz's age. Apparently he's 38, could be much older. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, who knows? Could be even older than that. We just don't know. But the question I want to ask you about that is, when have you actually seen Luis Ortiz rely on out-and-out athleticism? Think of someone like David Haye, who, that explosive athleticism was a big part of David Haye's game in his prime. But if you think about Luis Ortiz, when has he ever relied on that sort of explosiveness to get him through a fight, get a knockout, get the win, whatever? I think if we really look at Ortiz in the way, in the manner of his victories, in the way that he's fought, he's been old manning his way to victories for a long time. He knows his limitations, he works within them. He relies on his well-rounded skill base and his ability to take advantage of mistakes. Ortiz, I believe, does have enough power to take Deontay Wilder out. I could see Wilder making a mistake at some point and walking onto a straight left, and it would clean his clock. In general, I expect to see Ortiz being the ring general, dictating the early action, and racking up some easy rounds, much the same way that Gerald Washington and Artis Bilka were able to sort of dictate the action early on with a minimum of fuss against Deontay Wilder. But here's the rub. Deontay Wilder is a patient man. We've seen repeatedly he can be outboxed, but then come through with that equalizing power that he possesses. I don't think for a minute he comes in like a bull out of a gate like he did against an overmatched and out-of-shape Berman-Stavern. That was terrible. Berman-Stavern was terrible, I mean. I expect him to be cautious and cagey in the early going. Pick his spots, wait for an opportunity, and land that money shot, the right hand. That is the money shot. But I'm sure he's going to be aware of the potential counter if he commits to something and gets it wrong. And that's why I think this one goes into the later rounds. I could well see it ending in the 8th to 10th round with either guy getting the job done. And one thing is for sure, if Ortiz is still standing after the end of 12 rounds, he wins. No questions, he will take it on points. But the question is, can he get through 12 rounds and avoid a big right hand from Deontay Wilder? I'm not so sure. And this is why I'm going to stick my neck out here and say, I think Deontay Wilder will catch him eventually. Wilder will know that heading into the later rounds, he'll be chasing the fight. He'll show more urgency, and I think he will look to take advantage of a tiring Ortiz. He'll look for that opening, then bang, something will land. So I'm going for Wilder by KO in this one. But I've agonized over this because I can see both guys winning, and I won't be mad if Ortiz wins, because that could well happen. And you know what? I can't wait for March 3rd. Bring it on. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.